Welcome to Design Domination, where you'll gain confidence, clarity, and a competitive edge in a crowded marketplace so you can dominate your competition. Hi, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Colleen Grotzer, and in this episode of Design Domination, I'm joined by special guest Eugene Wu, and we're going to talk about accessible infographics and documents. As an engineer with a passion for visual storytelling, Eugene Wu recognized the challenges many faced in design, and this inspired him to master infographics and subsequently create Venngage. It's a platform that empowers you to transform your ideas into vibrant visuals without any design experience. Their user-friendly design tool enables you to generate accessibility-compliant content seamlessly. Welcome to the podcast, Eugene. I'm so excited you're here.
Thank you very much, Colleen. Pleasure is mine.
So I wanted to dive into a couple of fun questions. You seem to be an outdoorsy and traveling guy. So I looked a bit at your Instagram, I admit. So I wanted to ask, what is your favorite place that you visited?
It's such a tough question. Oh gosh. Oh. I'll give you a recent one. I went to Portugal a few months ago, and I really enjoyed it. Just the food, the scenery, and the people. People were really friendly. And yeah, it was like overall very laid back, just such a good time.
Oh, nice. Do you speak the language?
I don't. I speak Spanish though, but I do not speak Portuguese.
I do too.
I do not speak. They don't speak Portuguese. So you can speak Spanish there, and I mean, actually, everyone in Portugal, not everyone we've met in Portugal seems to understand English really well, but they also understand Spanish.
Oh, okay.
and I can actually, because I understand Spanish, I could actually understand a little bit of, I would say at least 50%. I would understand the intent at least.
Yeah.
And all the simple words are all the same. So, you know.
Right. Yeah. Well, so I have my degree in Spanish and French. My Spanish is really good. My French is like, I sound like I'm Spanish speaking French, but I've noticed that, yeah, I can hear Portuguese and I can hear Italian and I can make out what someone is saying. Yeah, for sure. And Portuguese to me sounds like a combination of Spanish and French.
Oh, and French, exactly. Yeah, because they have the intonation like the French. But yeah, so when I hear it, I'm like, oh yeah, this is like Spanish with French, with a French like intonation. It's really cool. So.
It's Español o Francais.
Yes.
Okay, so the other thing, I saw this picture on your Instagram account of a wild boar that you came across. So that made me think, okay, and you like swimming. So would you rather encounter a wild boar or would you rather encounter a shark?
I think a shark.
You'd rather encounter the shark? Okay, so I have to say, the wild boar photo that I saw, you must have been hiding or something. It wasn't like it was chasing you, but I imagine they do a lot of damage and they do chase, right?
Well, yes. I think the wild boar I don't remember now, but I was maybe on top of it. It was like at the bottom of a ravine or something. So like it would take a little bit of climbing for that guy to actually charge me. I think I was safe, I think. And so I am actually probably more terrified of wild boars than sharks. I have swum with sharks before. Oh. And unless it's a great white shark or some like massive shark, I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's nice. I've swum with, I would say a fair bit of reef sharks. And even fairly big ones, like 4 or 5 feet. I mean, probably, so like bigger than me, like 6 feet. Yeah, but you know, not like the great whites, not the Jaws kind. Just and they're not trying to eat me, so it was fine. It's just exposure, but yeah, definitely that. Although I'm afraid of the deep ocean. I think if I were tossed out of a cruise ship, I would be afraid.
Oh yeah,
where it's all dark and you can't see the bottom.
Right. Yeah. Well, I wouldn't want to swim with any kind of shark. I don't care how small it was, but I have done swimming with dolphins, that was really fun, and I wasn't afraid of them.
That's cool. Oh, there you go. Yeah, they're just sharks are just like dolphins, except they
have a lot of exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the only difference.
That's the only difference. The shape's kind of the same.
Yeah. So okay, well, it's really hard. I'm sure you know better than me how hard it is to find software that actually produces an accessible result. And it's a painstaking process to have to do that yourself. And I know because I've had to do that. Like I have to, any service I use, if something's not accessible, I've got to recode. Like I've had to recode email templates to be accessible. I've recoded themes to be accessible on my site. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a painstaking process. I mean, I've also hacked plugins, the code of plugins to make them more accessible. So, I've had to do a lot of this stuff, and I've even had to, I retagged documents without having access to a source file, because I do remediate documents.
Right.
So I know the struggle being someone who needs to practice what I preach, especially since I teach accessibility. And I do my darndest to make sure anything that I put out there is accessible. So I feel like I need to give a shout out to companies that are contributing to the accessibility effort. So I was really excited to learn about Venngage when I learned about them from my friends Dax and Chad when you were on Chat's Chat. So I was just like, this is great. We have to talk. I mean, because I tried it out and I really liked it. I like the look of the interface. I like how it works. I mean, it's very similar to Canva, but it has really good accessibility features, right? It's easy to use. It makes it fun and interactive. And actually, it reminds me a lot of, it's like a mix of Canva and Illustrator and a bit of InDesign, right? Because designers and non-designers can use it like Canva. You don't have to be a designer.
Right.
You can set up templates for other people to be able to use it. And then they can edit it, but someone who's not a designer can go in and they can also like edit the data on the charts, right? You can't go into Illustrator. Someone who's not a designer is not going to go into Illustrator and start playing around with the data in the charts, right? And they have to have a subscription to it, of course, to Adobe as well. But it also reminds me of Illustrator because the vector graphics, those are a really rich feature in Venngage. Like that's a really rich feature. And I think it reminds me of InDesign too, in that you can do a little bit of layout. And the exported documents, have some of the accessibility tags, right? They have the P tags and heading tags. And of course, just a document having tags does not mean that they're the correct ones. But I mean, I see InDesign, InDesign does a really good job. And I see like what I saw from Venngage in my tests, I saw, a really good job as well. So I was really excited about that. And I wanted to like first see like, what made you all get into accessibility and start adding accessibility features into Venngage?
So that journey started, now almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years and change, I would say. We were in the process of rebuilding our platform. And so we had, so Venngage has been around for 12 years, 11, 12 years now. And we were, so the old platform was by then almost 10 years old. And we were like, we need to rebuild it. There's a lot of, what we call technical debt in the platform. And one of the requests that we had frequently was, hey, can we download an accessible PDF? How do I add, alt text? Do you have an accessibility checker? It was essentially like a recurring theme. And it kind of just, it's one of those groups of things that we didn't have that we looked at and go like, gosh, we should look into this. And the more we looked into it, the more it made sense. I was like, we should make our documents more accessible. And that's when, and I'll be honest, I didn't know much about accessibility. But when we made the decision that we wanted to make our designs and documents accessible, then I had to learn about it. A lot of us, I would say the whole company had to learn about it. And then we kind of embraced it. We made, I would say for what we call I think the category we're in is a non-professional design tool, because most of our users are not the professional designers. They're still on InDesign or Illustrator or something else. We're probably one of the only or the few that have like an accessibility checker. I haven't checked see if Canva has one. They may have one, I'm not sure. But we're like, the last time we checked, we were the only ones that actually have an accessibility checker, which checks everything that WCAG 2.1 requires, everything from color contrast to having the tags and header logical reading and blah, and all of the stuff that is required by law, and to make it accessible, right, for both.
So do you think so? Okay, so originally you did not have accessibility integrated into the platform. Okay, so then you added it. Do you see that as having a competitive advantage over Canva because you have that?
I think so. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
it's a small competitive advantage over Canva. I mean, I always say
Mhm.
Canva is the gorilla in the market. They're huge. We're a very small player. We're like a small business. So just for context, we're a small business,
Mhm.
a small player in the market. But I do think it's a competitive advantage. It's sort of like a niche, right? Like I always say, hey, we're like Canva, except we have, accessibility, and we do better in things like infographics and sort of businessy stuff.
Mhm.
And so we have all that stuff that Canva can't be everything to everyone. So we
Sure.
focus on our niche, and accessibility has become one of those things that because we have all these features and we actually understand accessible documents probably better than the Canva team and a lot of the other teams. We are able to, and we talk to people like you and all that. We're in the community, so we're able to add features into our tool that can help people who want to make their documents accessible.
Mhm. Well, one of the things I noticed when I was using it is that, I know how resistant designers can be even to get into accessibility.
Right.
I teach them, and a lot of them don't want to get into it. They think it's too technical. So I've been trying to change that. So that can be a challenge, to get designers interested in that. But
Hmm.
what I really liked about your software is that, it's got this interface that not only looks good, so it's appealing to designers, right? But you have tooltips with explanations to like show to educate people, to educate anyone who's using it, not just designers obviously, but to educate them about, what this is for or what this means. And so I think that's really helpful. It's like very interactive and educational.
Yeah. So you're absolutely right about, it's not just designers, like anyone in general, like someone writing a document in general. Like if you have to teach them about accessibility, they're just going like, why do I have to,
Right.
spend this much time? So one of the key sort of design, you know, things that we adopted, design principles we adopted was like, look, we have to kind of design this sort of like universal design and accessible design where we don't want to like have to teach someone a whole new platform, a whole new way to design. We want to try and integrate accessibility as much as possible as part of the
Mm-hmm.
design process. And the tooltips is one of the things you mentioned. So I think color is the other one. So one of the things that I think we found really annoying was like, hey, if you have to use an outside color checker every time you look for a color, like that's just, like who's going
Mm-hmm.
to do that? No one's going to open up another color, a tool and just copy and paste the hex code. It's really difficult to do that. Find out what the hex code is, find out what the background hex code is, the foreground. Like it's a lot of work. So
It
we
is.
we sort of designed. So we then we were like so we had to design the system so that hey, it's now just integrated in the color picker. We'll do all the testing in the color picker itself. So when you pick a color of a text or an object, we will do the comparisons and tell you very simply, we'll sort of highlight red if it's low contrast, and then if it's good enough high. And it
Mm-hmm.
depends. And we also look at the font size. So if it's large fonts, we use the obviously large fonts. You can get away with lower contrast and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the accessibility is sort of built in, and so it's less effort. So we try to make it less effort, and we also try to put some guardrails as well. There's some guardrails around some of the stuff you can do and cannot do.
Mm-hmm.
Although we had to take out, I think, not to say we take them out, like before we made it really strict, where every time you download it, we would pop something up and say like, "Hey, this isn't accessible. This is accessible," and I think that was a little too annoying. So we took that out and so, and made it more of a, "Hey, if you want to check it, then you check it." So.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, and for anyone that's listening, if you haven't been listening to me and you don't know about color and contrast, then because I talk about it all the time, is that contrast is important for it's important for sighted users. I mean, it's important for low vision users, also for users with color blindness. I'm having issues reading things that are lower contrast that I didn't used to have. But I don't have a visual disability. I'm not diagnosed with a visual disability, but I have issues with that.
Oh
So
yeah, like yeah, 100%. Like I think even in like low light situations, sometimes
yeah,
it's
that's a
like,
good
hey,
example. Right.
yeah, at night, like or whatever, or too much glare. Like you kind of need,
Yeah.
contrast to be high enough so that you can actually read the font or whatever it is that you want
Yeah.
people to look at. So
Yeah, situational accessibility. Yeah, that's a
Yep.
great point. Yeah. Well, and I also noticed too, like that you can, I mean, you have the accessible templates, but that are like tagged with certain heading levels and
Mhm.
paragraph text and so forth. So, but that you could go in there and you can, so even if you're starting from that though, you can still go in and you can change those and modify the tags and add more text and still mimic that hierarchy, and add more items
Mhm.
into the design. So the templates, the accessible templates are a really great starting point as well for that.
Yeah, so we have, what we call accessible templates. Those are essentially templates that doesn't require a lot of, like you can pretty much, like you said, just add stuff and they're good to go. But you can also take, so we've sort of evolved since then. You can also take any template
Hmm.
and just run the accessibility checker and just kind of fix stuff up as you go along as well. The reason not 100 we didn't mark everything as accessible is because we're still in the process of kind of making sure all the tags are correct. We did this conversion, like I said, we went from an older platform to a new platform,
Hmm.
so we transfer all these older templates over. You can make all of them accessible. It's just that the tags, maybe it's mainly the tags. It's like I think by default everything is like a header, like even a
Mm.
paragraph is a header or something like that. So it's kind of wonky, and the order is a bit wonky. You'll have to
Hmm.
reorder You'll have to, when I mean the order, I mean the reading order. The order on the
Hmm.
page looks fine. The
Right.
reading order, it may be a little bit off, and you'll have to go in there and sort of like reorder the reading order a little bit. That's about it. Everything else, as far as color and all that, I think we've done a good job in
Hmm.
general. But you can definitely take any template on Venngage and very quickly using the accessibility checker make it like accessible.
Yeah, I noticed that. But so you guys are kind of like remediating your older templates
Oh,
then to make them
exactly.
accessible. You're doing your own
Correct.
remediation work there.
Yep. Yep. Correct. So that it's a lot easier for other people. Like if there's like something that has like four different sections, and typically that's what our users do. They're not like creating anything from scratch. They take our templates, they just replace the text, replace the images, maybe the
Hmm.
color and the branding, and then they're done. So if you just did that, and then and if you exported it without doing anything, without like it should be like if it's an accessible template, it should be like, I don't know, 90% accessible. Like you might have
Hmm.
added some images and didn't put alt text in there, but otherwise it would be really, really good.
Okay, and then the tags we're talking about, those are for headings and paragraphs. There's other tags that you can use in a document, but those are good to help illustrate the hierarchy in the document for someone that can't see it, and then they understand, like it's like an outline. It's like an outline for the document of like, here's a heading, here's a subhead, and this is in this section and so forth. So that's really important when somebody's not able to, look at the page. They can't see the page. So I also
Yeah,
noticed
yeah.
that
Yeah.
you had the alt text. You have the alt text ability to
Yes.
add that, and you have the AI generator, which I tried out, and that was really good. Actually, it did a good job.
Yeah, so the AI, so alt text, obviously, like you can do alt text on any images, any illustrations, anything. Obviously, that's not text, you can do alt text for, including charts and diagrams as well. And then the AI stuff is, you can auto generate the text. I think it does a good job, and then you just go in and just like anything AI, like don't rely on it 100%. But I think it gives you a great starting point, and then you can
Hmm.
go in and we use Chat GPT, so Chat GPT is getting better and better. So I think as they get better and better, that auto generated AI, the auto generated alt text is going to get better and better as well.
Well, and it looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if you add alt text to an image, you get that little blue tag that says alt on it, so you know
Right.
that you've
Yeah.
added. So you can easily visually scan your document to see if you've added alt text to something, or if something is decorative that it doesn't have alt text too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes. You can. So we overlay. We can overlay the headings and the alt text thing on your canvas as well.
Oh, so if you have an H2, it'll say like H2 on there. I don't remember if I saw that. Does it
Yeah,
do
if you
that?
turn on the tags, like it's not by default, but we have like
Oh,
a tag view. It will just highlight all the tags. Yeah, but so for hours you can. I mean, you can turn on if you turn on all the headings, you'll see all the tags on the page.
Oh, that's
Very
great.
similar to the alt. Very similar to the alt. It's the same UI. It's very similar to the alt box on alt text.
Oh, I definitely have to check that out. Okay, so that's really cool. Yeah, that's really helpful. Okay, and then like you talked about the checker earlier too, which, I saw that, it's checking for like, clear link text, like not a bunch of click here's or read mores and things like that. That's really neat that that's doing that.
Yeah, we check for. I think we try and automate as much as we can, and things that are, the things that we can automate for checking, and then obviously there are manual checks that has to happen, as
Oh yeah.
in accessibility. You still have to check to make sure that that you don't do, you can pass the test, but it could still be not accessible because the text isn't linked, click here or read more, but it just could be like completely wrong, right? It could be
Right.
something else. So,
Right. And clear link text is so important for anyone that isn't able to see where that hyperlink is going to take them. So if they have to hear it and they just hear if it's like a screen reader user can pull up a list of hyperlinks in the screen reader. And if they see a whole bunch of like click here's, they don't know if they're all like are those 5 links the same? Do they all go to the same
right.
place? Or are they 5 different links? Are they 3 different links? Whatever. So clear link text is important. And then I saw that, it does, I love how it does the reading order, like just how you can drag and drop like that. That was like super easy, the reading order in the checker there.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the I think the tags and the reading order are one of the cooler things in our editor. And you can do all of that, you can do all of that in the editor without having to export it and then use a remediation tool or use like Adobe to kind of redo all of that stuff, redo all the tagging and the order.
Right.
You just do it all in one platform as you're designing. So yeah, and I think the goal always has been spend a little bit more time on the design and the accessibility. It doesn't require you. Once you get used to the tool, it doesn't really. It's like 5 minutes more, maybe, if not less. And then you save all that time on having to send it to a remediator or worse, just like releasing it without it being accessible.
And you said the other things they're checking for is checking for like the color. It's checking for contrast. I think there's a manual check for use of color in there too. I think it flags it, right?
Yeah. There is manual text for use of color, and then I think images of text and there's a whole bunch of stuff that's logical reading order obviously is manual as well and stuff.
Right, lots of manual checks, yeah. And then so editing the tag order, that was super, like editing that was super easy to do, and I like how it's visually in there and it's super clear. And then also I noticed that you can set the document language. I was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, it's set by default. So I think we auto detect the language.
Okay.
And then so it's set by default. So you don't actually have to go in and set it to like English or whatever. It is set by default. So if you want to change it, you can go change it. And then I think the document title is typically the title of the of the document. That's it. So we do set the metadata, the properties of the document.
Okay. So what happens if you let's say you have an image in there, like a design that's all in English, and then you duplicate that, and you want to make it Spanish, is that going to then recognize the Spanish automatically?
I actually don't know the answer to that. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know when we actually do the detection. Is it real time every time you check, or do we do it up front? So
I also imagine like even if like you had like a bilingual design on the same page, most people are not going to be doing that, but that would be interesting to know like how it's detecting it. Yeah. And then
I don't know that. I do know I do know that we don't handle bilingual within the same document. So if how you have one section, you can tag it as like, okay, this section is in Spanish, and then go back to the English. I know we don't do that yet. So that is something that I think you would still have to manually include and manually remediate if you had a document that had multi-language in there.
Well, so another feature that I think was like super cool, including, for non-designers and designers though, is the color blindness simulator, because you're checking for, I think there were 6 different types of color blindness in there.
Right.
And it's checking for. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. You don't have to go to an
Yes.
outside source for that either.
No. No, exactly. So we check for the, you know, the big ones, I guess, like the
Yeah.
green. I cannot pronounce. I apologize. Cannot pronounce what they're called.
Yeah.
Protanopia. I'm gonna screw up all the pronunciations, but the reds, you know, detecting reds, greens, blues,
Right.
and yellows. And then cataracts and the low vision, which is kind of like blurry. So we can simulate all of that on the canvas as you're designing as well.
Hmm.
So then you can see whether your color choices are great or not
Right. So
for the different
yeah,
color blindness. Yeah.
because like Illustrator built in, Illustrator only has 2 different visual simulators in
Okay.
there. So this is pretty neat that you got like the achromatic, so just grayscale view, and
Grayscale,
then
right?
the, like you're saying, the red and green, the protanopia, and the blue yellow, the
Yeah.
deuteranopia. So like that's more extensive than Illustrator goes with that. Of course, it'd be nice to have that in InDesign, but we don't have that.
It's probably a plugin for that. I'm not sure. Yeah. So I mean, I think the other thing that we recognize was, yes, there's a lot of plugins. You can like put a bunch of plugins, and it probably will work with a lot of the Adobe tools, like it. And we just wanted everything on the platform. We're like, we might as well just add all of it as you're designing, you know, to make it easier. Because I think most designers will not add a plugin unless they really, you know, unless they really needed it, or someone they're really educated on it. Because so one of our goals was, we wanted to we wanted to sort of also educate people who didn't know about accessibility, and I think this was one of the ways, right? Like you know, we don't expect people to know about, and in fact we know this because we we asked people whether they care, and it was a very low, it was a small percentage of users who knew about it. And we can measure, and we do measure usage of the features in our tools, and the usage has been increasing. So presumably these would be, you know, we assume that these are users who initially, a lot of them were probably users who didn't know about accessibility, and then they find out, oh, I can do all these things. Great. You know?
Oh, well, that's interesting. Yeah. So the designers and non-designers that use your platform, where are they typically from?
I mean, a lot of them are from the States. I would say at least 50%.
Oh, I don't mean like
And
location, but like
sorry.
like, are they government? Are they like, so
Oh,
like that kind of
yeah,
background?
it's a mix. So we have a lot of students use our platform. I would say 50%, or I mean, at least until the semester is over. So in the summer, yeah, no, but when the semester is in, about 50% of our users are students, and then the rest is just a mix: government, nonprofits, obviously a lot of small businesses use this as well. Yeah, I don't think the small businesses care about accessibility, but the government institutions and higher ed as well. So the initial request we got was from governments and higher ed. And actually we had, you know, so we're based in Canada, and some of the initial requests that we had was actually from the Canadian government, because they're very similar rules, you know, as the States, but I think there's more. I'm not sure there's more enforcement. I don't want to say that, but people are probably more cognizant of it here, because of the way it works. So
AODA, where you are.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, which is very similar to, it's WCAG. It's the same thing.
Yeah, right. So with those users of your platform, what do you think is the biggest impediment then with education to accessibility, and like or adopting accessibility, you know, at the wider scale, like getting them on board at the wider scale?
I think it's the status quo. So like you kind of mentioned Canva. I think a lot of users are already using Canva. They're on an existing system. And so they, you know, and we've had pushback going like, yeah, you're just, you know, the features are very similar. Like, why do we have to switch? I think that's one of it. And the other one is, I think it is the reliance on remediators. I think they are like larger organizations do have an accessibility team. They do have PDF remediator, all kinds of remediators. And they're like, yeah, it's not my job. I'll just design whatever I need to design, and I'll let the remediators deal with it. And, you know, even though it's a lot more, you know, it's a lot more work, it takes a lot more time. It's probably a lot more expensive as well. But I think that's also, that's also one of the impediments, that they don't want to learn about, accessibility,
Mm-hmm.
and that's at least that's what we've seen in higher ed and government in these larger organizations that do have an accessibility.
Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, well, now maybe they're also like, well, we already have enough on our plate. Now we have to learn something else.
Yeah,
You
yeah, yeah.
know?
Although we've been very successful, we've onboarded a few uh, higher ed like university teams that were using Canva, and then they switched over and they're like, oh, it's just like Canva. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is like it's not that different, except that you get the accessibility at a much easier and lower cost because it's all of that because of all the features that we just talked
Right.
about.
Right. Well, I also noticed that like even when I exported like a PDF and was looking at the tags, like even the tables, like the table feature you have in there, like it was even like tagging the table headers,
Yeah,
like
it
with the
should be
proper
correct.
tag. And I was like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah.
wow,
Yeah,
that's
the table should be tagged correctly. Yeah, yeah. The roles be yeah, like it that should be good. Yeah. The tables should be I mean most everything should be exported with proper tags.
mm-hmm.
Should be. Yeah, unless we had I mean there's always bugs unless we introduce a bug here, here and there, but for the most part we did look at everything and made sure that hey, if you actually exported a PDF, a screen reader, it will be accessible. You should be able to read it like, properly with a screen reader, and it should pass, if you use a tool to check for like a
Mm-hmm.
pack, like that's a PDF checking tool, accessibility checker, like it should pass.
Well, I think also this is for designers. I think this is a great opportunity, especially because so many designers are asked to design things in Canva. I know they hate doing that. I don't see anything wrong with doing that if it's like you're not trying to lay out like a huge publication in Canva that you should be using InDesign for. Like I always say, like, would you rather dig a hole with a spoon or a shovel? Like you need the right tool for the job,
Right,
right? So obviously there are
right,
situations where you don't want to be using a tool like that, but designers can like leverage that, like all the opportunities that they're doing now in Canva. If they need to incorporate accessibility, they can get clients on board with your version, like with Venngage, which is like we've talked about the similarities of that in Canva, but with the accessibility. So it's like they can, if they're already doing work for somebody in Canva, they could switch to Venngage and actually get the accessibility features. They can actually create templates, like their own
yeah,
templates in there too. And that's a huge opportunity for them when working with clients, because so many clients want to use a platform like Canva where they can, or Venngage, obviously, where they can go in there and they can manage it themselves. A lot of them want to they don't want to deal with an Adobe subscription, or they have people that are not designers
right,
using it. So a
yeah.
platform like what you've got, like that's, I see a lot of opportunities there for designers to leverage, the features in Venngage for that.
Yeah, and I think our hope is that hey, if you're interested in accessibility and you want to and everyone should be, yeah, you should use a tool. You should use the right tool, like you said. Choose the right tool so that it doesn't, don't use the wrong tool, because then you'll have to add more work if you want to make things accessible. You'll have to, buy an Adobe subscription or hire a
Mm-hmm.
remediator or do a lot more work. You might as well just start with the right tool, and that can produce accessible PDFs and accessible designs.
Well, so you already have so many accessibility features built into Venngage. So what is like even next on the horizon?
So there's a few things. I think there's some work on charts and diagrams. I think that's hard in general, not even to remediate like a chart or right now we let you do alt text, which is kind of simplistic. So
Mm-hmm.
we do want to kind of improve on that. And I think the other one that we're more excited about is essentially it's more of an admin feature,
Mm-hmm.
an administrative feature, where we sort of let you look at your whole organization, and so we're monitoring all of the documents, all the designs that are being produced, and then we'll very similar to how a website, an accessibility kind of like checker kind of gives you the lay of the land of all your pages and which ones are, what's the percentage are accessible and all of that. We would do the same thing with documents,
Mm.
where we would monitor all the documents that were downloaded from our platform, and tell you, hey, what's the percentage that were actually accessible, and what's the percentage that isn't, and those that weren't accessible, what are all the percentages of errors. So we would give someone like an administrator like a high level view. If you were, let's say, in a university, you're like, and you had users on Venngage, how many of the documents were, that were produced or actually, did the user actually run the accessibility checker, and what percentage of those were actually, accessible versus non-accessible. And I think that sort of gives you, because not, we know that everything's not going to be 100%, but hey, if you can see a trend that's kind of increasing, a positive trend over time, and that's what we want to show. Like, hey, we want to show administrators and sort of high level people that, hey, if you adopt this platform, we'll give you a dashboard, and hopefully you'll see that, hey, the percentages of documents created will increase, accessible documents created will increase over time.
Well, I can see that being an opportunity for designers who are doing accessibility. That could be something where they can go in and they can see that information, and they could help make those existing templates more accessible for a client too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, they're all using the same platform. They could go like, oh yeah, and we, in our enterprise plan, we have these workspaces. So you could, we have these concepts of workspace or groups. So you could see, hey, which group is producing, more accessible data, and which ones aren't, completely ignoring accessibility. And you can, go in and coach those groups. Hey, maybe we'll help you, with, maybe your templates aren't good, and we'll fix it for you. Or maybe it's training that's involved. I mean, we don't know, but at least you can see, hey, what are all the, you can sort of have a high level view of how the organization or all the different groups or clients are doing.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool. All right. Well, you've got a special page set up for my audience, and you all can find that at creative-boost.com/Venngage. And Venngage has 2 N's, so it's VENNGAGE.
And there's several paid versions, obviously, but you can sign up for free. And
so you've several different levels. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. It's been really great to talk to you.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you very much for having me on your podcast. I really, really appreciate it.
If you want to show off that you're a design dominator while supporting the podcast, be sure to grab a shirt, hat, mug, or other merchandise in one of 3 designs. Just go to creative-boost.com/merch.